Afternoon, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome to the January 12th, 2026 open special meeting of the Guelph Police Service Board. This meeting today has been called for the purpose of discussing the budget, and as per Article 11.3 of the Board bylaws, Bylaw 136, no other business will be discussed today. So at this point, I'm going to start with our territorial announcement. As we gather, let us take time to reflect on our privilege to live and work in Guelph, a city built over rich Indigenous histories. We are guests here, and we should reflect upon the responsibilities to care for this land, the people who live here today, and the generations to come. If our actions today can move us toward reconciliation, we should take pause and make those decisions with intention and gratitude. This place we call Guelph has served as the traditional lands and a place of refuge for many peoples over time, but more specifically that of Wanderunk and the Haudenosaunee. This land is held as treaty land and territory with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Guelph lies directly adjacent to the Haldimand Tract and is part of a long-established traditional hunting ground for the Six Nations of the Grand River. Many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people who have come from across Turtle Island call Guelph home today. So first thing I start is asking if there are any declarations of conflict of pecuniary interest. Hearing none, I will declare that item closed. My next item is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Vice Chair Sharma, seconded by Mayor Guthrie. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now I'll turn this over to Chief Kobe to provide a presentation to the board regarding the 2026 budget, and we will allow time for questions from the board once that has been done. Chief Kobe.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just going to make sure before I start that's going to work. So just bear with me for a second here. Okay, now hopefully you can see that title page and still hear me. Perfect.
Yes, both. Yes to both.
Perfect. Now, and I know the board has read the package and seen this presentation already, so I promise I will be brief, then we can get into the discussion phase of our meeting. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations about our KPMG review. Year 2026 is scheduled to be our third year of our multi-year budget, a discussion we've had many times. And we have chatted about the importance of the catch-up required based on the results of the KPMG review, as well as the priority to be mindful of the affordability considerations for our citizens. Our 2026 FTE catch-up, and I think it's important to note that the first year of our budget, we had made the decision back in 2023 that we would phase in the point-in-time recommendations from KPMG, knowing that that would slow the implementation of that catch-up, but again, being mindful of affordability. The scheduled catch-up for 2026 is 6 sworn and 2 civilian members. And as a result of our budget meeting a couple of months ago, we've made the commitment as a board to fund 2 Canadian Mental Health Association clinicians to support our community. We've talked at length about the value that Mark and Kim have provided. And I know as recently as this morning, I talked to Helen at CMHA, and there's obviously a great need for that second impact worker, not only from a crisis support perspective, but to provide proactive care for folks in our downtown, folks who may be living in encampments throughout the city to provide proper care paths, et cetera. So we've made that commitment, and the budget recommendation that you see before you keeps that commitment because we think that's really, really important for our community. The vast majority of 2026 increases over and above the original planned amount was the function of collective bargaining that was recently ratified. You've seen this slide many times. 2025 has ended, so we had a record number of calls last year. That trend has been consistent over the last several years. In addition, a trend that has remained the same is that our community growth seems to increase faster than our service growth. So you'll see where this red line continues to go down. That's the officers per 100,000 population. And it's always important to note this does not include the approximately 30,000 students at the University of Guelph. So if we were to overlay that number, that red number would dip a little bit further. Over the last many years, we've talked about this, how as we've tried to catch up and invest accordingly, we've made very steady gains with respect to the safety of the community. We've also made very steady gains with respect to improvements in response times and overtime. From 23 to 24, we saw improvements with respect to reducing overtime. And while we certainly haven't finalized 2025, initial indications are an improvement again in 25 over 24. So when we invest, we improve the safety of the community. We are reducing response times from their highs, and we're reducing overtime, which has both a financial and a wellness perspective from the interests of our members and our community. While we're doing all of this, over the last several years, we continue to use a decreasing percentage of the overall city budget. I think that's pretty pertinent. And again, we're trying to be very mindful of the affordability commitment that we made when we chose to phase in this FTE catch-up plan over the last several years. With all of this in mind, 2026, we're going to have to absorb some non-discretionary service enhancements. The ministry requests with respect to increased court security, Bill 33 as far as supporting our school boards, and Bill 56 for road safety. We've talked at length about that, both at the board and the community, so I won't expand on those unless there's questions during the Q&A portion. I do think it's important to note, though, just these service enhancements that are being absorbed with the original 2026 FTE catch-up, but were not budgeted for. So we're on the same plan with additional service enhancements. Just this alone will essentially absorb the 2026 planned catch-up. So essentially, I had said 3 years ago, we would be in 2027 where we should have been in 2023. We're now probably going to be in 2028 where we should have been in 2023. But again, affordability, we're trying to absorb these and do our best while balancing affordability and public safety. Thanks to Sarah and our leadership team and our members, affordability and fiscal governance is important. With that in mind, the final surplus it won't be finalized for a few months. However, we are anticipating a surplus as noted in the Q3 report that you saw at our last meeting for 2025. With all of this in mind, while I've said before, and for obvious reasons, we can't support a reduction in the FTE catch-up. We're basically 5 years behind. Having said that, based on the reserve balance for the contingency operating reserve, which you'll note in the report, based on city policy, can be up to a maximum of 5%. It currently sits at 4%, or approximately $2.4 million. With that in mind, we are recommending that to reduce the budget, the CMHA impact positions be returned to funding based on the contingency reserve for 2026. However, they should remain in base for 2027. So that helps us mitigate the costs in 2026. However, we can't lose sight of how important and how non-discretionary those positions are. And I think that honors the commitment that we've made to CMHA and our community, our downtown community, all other vulnerable folks who are struggling in the city. With that all in mind, you'll see that so by doing that, we reduce the budget by $235,000. And again, I won't redo all of this. We could certainly get into all of this if you'd like to, but the recommendation, as noted in your report, is essentially to reduce our operating budget by that $235,000, confirm the 27 as discussed at our previous meeting. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and look forward to any questions. Sarah, have I stopped sharing now? Perfect.
Thank you very much, Chief Kobe. I'm going to turn this over to any questions or comments from the board. Mayor Guthrie.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, my colleagues on the board, and to the chief. First of all, just want to say thank you for calling this special meeting to just have another look at the budget in a way that we may be able to fulfill the requirements that we have as a board, while focusing on the affordability factor, which you've raised a couple of times in your comments. So thank you very much for doing that. My question is just around surplus. And on page 4 of the report, it indicates that as of December 31st, 2025, so just a couple weeks ago, the forecast year-end balance prior to any surplus allocation is 2.45 million, representing 4%. So may I just ask through you, Chair, to the appropriate staff, what are we expecting the balance of the contingency reserve to be after 2025? is apportioned to the existing amount that's in the reserve right now?
Okay, and I'm going to let Sarah answer that. However, just as of a note, remember, that would be a discretionary deposit into our reserve based on city discretion. So it's not an automatic that the 2025 surplus would go into our operating reserve. That's a decision that has to be supported by council.
Yes.
But with that, Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. To the mayor. So if maintaining the $500,000 surplus we were projecting for Q3, that would take the balance up to the 2.9 million. And then the 235,000 would come out in 2026 to fund the clinicians. So year end with the surplus, we'd be looking at approximately 2.9 million, maintaining that $500,000 surplus, which I think, kind of based on what we were seeing through December, is a fairly conservative yet solid number.
Thank you. And so just as a follow-up, will the 4% remain the same then, do you think? Or because it's going to go to the 2.9 and that includes the 230 some odd $1,000 coming out to cover off the CMHA employees, will we stay at the 4%, or is that going to jump us higher?
So you'll go up you'll go beyond 4% in 2025, and then with the transfer out in 2026, you'll dip down closer to 4 or just under 4%.
Right, which is still under the 5% policy. Yeah. So, okay, thank you. And then as a continued follow-up on that, then I just wanted to know that, I just wanted to ask, when this opportunity arose for us to relook at the budget, was there any thought of using more of the contingency reserve in any other areas? And by the way, I know what the impact of that is, so don't think I don't know, but I just want to ask the question to see if there was any thought to anything else, and if there was, would you be willing to share that with the board?
I'll let Sarah. I think overall, we want to make sure that we're always looking for affordability, but on the same token, we only have a 5% or 4% reserve. So that is very limited if you think of the record number of homicide investigations we did 3 years ago. So we have tried to find a reasonable one-time use while not becoming dependent upon it. Sarah, I don't know if there's more to add.
I think you summed it up, Chief. We tend to try to use the contingency reserve to offset one-time or temporary costs. There's really not a lot of opportunity within the budget to do that. So to avoid kind of adding something in, just have to take it out next year, as well as the Chief highlighted, reducing the balance further in that reserve. No, we didn't consider any offsetting any other costs with that reserve.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, I just, you know what, through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask it so that it was out in the open that, you know, there's good reasons why we need to have that reserve there, and to mask future issues by, I'll just call it raiding the reserve now is probably not appropriate. So I think this is a well-balanced use of the reserves at this time. I'm very appreciative that we are recognizing within the motions that are before us that we will put these 2 new CMHA employees into the base budget moving into 2027. So I'm very glad that you captured that as well. I just again want to say thank you, Mr. Chair, and to staff. And I know this came out of sort of nowhere, and so I appreciate that. I'm happy to move the recommendations, and I do have a follow-up separate motion for the board to consider after this, if possible, Mr. Chair. With that, I'll mute and turn it back to you. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. I see there's a Councillor Alt has his hand up and wants to either ask a question or a comment. So we'll turn to allow Councillor Alt to speak first.
Thank you. If appropriate, I will also second the motion. Just the comment, first of all, I think it's on slide 2 or 3 that Chief Kobe started to talk about legislative changes. And with regards to the presentation to the council, I think it's very important that that be raised, because council did pass a motion essentially scolding the provincial government for much of what they've been downloading to the city, and this fits right in there. Every legislative change that has an impact upon police services has an impact on city budget. And if appropriate, I would like it to be stressed at the meeting, along with the record number of calls. When I just did a quick ballpark, I think that was about a 25% increase in 1 year in calls. And just for clarification, are we basing policing on a base population of 159,000 now? Because that number is one that I don't think anybody's really been playing with in the public. But if that is the case, I think it needs to be out there.
Yeah, and I would say through you, Mr. Chair, so we use Census Canada when it comes to funding and that officer to population, et cetera, but that does not include the, as I said, 30,000 residents of the university approximately. So I think it's Councillor Caron is much better educated than I with respect to heads and beds levies and things like that. But I would say we're policing, we're funded at about 150,000. We're policing closer to 180, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I don't think that should be missed. I mean, this really galls me that communities like Guelph, Waterloo are behind the 8 ball. We don't have the population base like Toronto, but this can be spread over a significant metropolitan tax base, and so consequently we really get squeezed. And I don't think anybody truly understands that. What they understand is percentages increase on their property tax. I also think it's important to stress that 2026 we were scheduled for enhancements, but for all intents and purposes, none are going to occur. We're essentially status quo in terms of our capacity to police appropriately. And yet we have to increase our budget significantly. That should not be missed. Much as people want to keep costs in line, they also want us to have a city that is appropriately serviced by GPS, fire, paramedics, whatever. Last point that I want to make, I'm just trying to get this all in at once, Peter. Could you clarify for me the base budget, the impact workers are going back in 2027, but what I'm very concerned about is the potential for us to pull it back out in 2027. Will that be in the base budget without potentially pulling it out again? And if so, do we have to also be aware that that's another cost in the base budget that we'll have to consider for 2027?
So the chart that you had, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're presenting you puts those impact workers back into the base budget for 2027. I think not only the ROI demonstrated by those positions, but the commitment we've made to CMHA in the community, those are in the base budget moving forward. Subject to the wisdom of the board, but we are assuming those two positions will remain moving forward as base.
Okay, thank you. So this is definitely a one-off, and I think we need to be very transparent on that. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I will ask for the motion, which I believe Mayor Guthrie has already said he's going to accept this budget proposal. I believe Mayor Guthrie has indicated his willingness to propose it, and Councillor Alt has indicated there is a agreement to second it. So I'm going to say all in favor? Opposed? I declare it carried. Thank you.
Just for a point of order there, I think Councillor Alt's connection is delayed, so I think he was in favor. Because it came. Yes. I hope that's okay, Phil.
Yeah. I assumed it was. Councillor Alt is not shy.
I don't want to spend money. No.
He's not shy in disputing if I'd inappropriately characterized his voter support. So anyway, at this point, I guess I just need to have a mover and a seconder for adjournment today.
And Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Mayor had a motion he had referenced earlier.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, and thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I did send an email through to Leslie, the Chief, and the Chair earlier. And actually, I've written a motion here that is in respect to a lot of the requirements coming down from the province on police boards. And I was wondering, Mr. Chair, if I could it's quite long, but I wouldn't mind just reading it out loud for the members of the board and then see if there's a seconder with that.
And I apologize for this, but was this motion placed in the public materials that were issued, Leslie?
No, I'm sorry.
They weren't. We received it just before the meeting started. So no, they're not in the package.
So would it be, Mayor Guthrie, would it be agreeable if we were to add that to our next regular agenda, given that this is a special meeting?
Let me clarify though. It is related to the budget.
Yeah, it's
related.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I should have clarified that.
Okay. All right. In that case, by all means.
Yeah, for sure. Mr. Chair, I would never put something completely at odds on an agenda item for sure. So I don't know, Leslie, do you happen to have the copy that could be shown on the screen? Would that make it easier for everyone than me just reading it out?
Yeah, sure. Just give me a minute. I'm going to plug it into a Word document that I can share on the screen, just easier than doing it via email. So just give me 2 seconds.
Okay, and while Leslie's doing that, I will just start reading it at the same time. So it's whereas the City of Guelph has constituted a police services board, which are required to ensure adequate and effective policing is provided in the area for which they have policing responsibility in accordance with the needs of the population in the area and having regard to the diversity of the population within the area, And whereas police service boards within municipalities where court proceedings are conducted are required to ensure the security of judges, other judicial officials, members of the public participating in court proceedings, ensuring the security and custody of persons in custody who are on or about the premises, including persons taken into custody of proceedings. And whereas the cost of providing court security is a cost of the Police Services Board budgets, regardless of whether all matters originate within that municipality. And whereas the cost of providing resource officers within educational institutions is now a direct requirement of provincial legislation. And whereas these cost increase stems from provincially mandated requirements, including training, certification, technology, reporting, and staffing obligations necessary to bring local police services into compliance with required acts. And whereas municipalities and local police boards have no discretion in implementing these measures and limited ability to absorb the resulting financial pressures within existing police service board budgets. And whereas policing is a provincially legislated responsibility, yet municipalities guided by local police service boards are bearing the brunt of the costs to implement provincial mandates. Therefore, be it resolved that the Guelph Police Service Board requests that the province of Ontario provide targeted, permanent financial assistance to support municipalities and/or police boards to offset any additional costs that are directly and demonstratively incurred as a result of compliance with new legislation, and not general increases to police budgets. And therefore be it resolved that the Guelph Police Services Board requests that the province of Ontario provide stable, sustainable funding to offset costs associated with the provision of providing court security services and resource officer deployment, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of the Solicitor General, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, and the applicable police service boards in Ontario. So sorry for the long-windedness there. I'm looking for a seconder if possible.
Sorry, I can't see if there's I see Councillor Alt is seconding. Is there any discussion on this motion? Sorry, hearing none, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? I declare it carried.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, Cam, when you, or Mayor Guthrie, when you sent this, I don't think I had seen it just due to my schedule today, so.
No problem. Thank you. It only took 5 minutes. We're done. Thank you very much. Yep.
Okay, in that case, can I please have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mayor Guthrie, seconded by Councillor Alt. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.